Om Sakana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Birth and death. Birth equals appearance, death equals disappearance. Birth and death is nothing but appearance and disappearance. Between the appearance and disappearance, there is a period of existence. So it is divided as birth, existence, death. So the 2 points is the appearance and the disappearance. Between this appearance and disappearance, there is a period where it exists. From this we understand birth and death happens in the phenomena of time. There is a time of appearance and there is the time of disappearance, and between the two there is an existence. Generally, the misunderstanding is the birth of the body is the birth of you, and the death of the body is the end of you. People believe when the body is born, you are born, and when the body dies, you are dead. And also, when somebody dies, we say rest in peace also, isn't it? There is rest in peace. It is going to travel. Rest. As long as it is traveling, there is no. As long as it is traveling, there is no rest. Or it is resting to resume the travel. That is death. You can call it like that. It is resting so that it can gather energies to pick up another travel. What is the destination of this travel? That is what we are analyzing. So we said birth and death. It is a continuous happening. It's a traveler, and traveler must have a destination, isn't it? Or at least he should be aware of the destination. Then he knows what to do, what not to do in the travel. If he doesn't know what the destination is, what he will do? A person traveling without a destination, what would you call that person? What would you call that person? Here is a person traveling. He wakes up in the morning and he just starts walking in some direction, and then gets tired, sits, gathers energy, and continues the travel again. What would you call that person? Vagabond. They know that I don't understand that word, vagabond. Footloose. A traveler doesn't know the destination or not aware of the destination is a purposeless wanderer. He's wandering all over the place. He just goes in one direction and then next morning takes up and then starts walking in another direction. Shankar, our பேர் தான் vagabond. All big words they use, I get confused. Here, there is the traveler, and this traveling, does it have a destination? Is there a destination? Does it have a destination? There is the destination. Mere survival is not a destination. Living from birth, one thing that everybody tries is what? From birth, one thing that everybody tries is to postpone death as much as possible. Elongate living as much as possible. Postpone death as much as possible. Survive, that's all. Just be alive. Just survival, that's all it is. Organs after organs will be changed, isn't it? The kidneys will get changed, the liver will get changed, the heart also can get changed, the brain also can changed. Somehow survival has to happen. For what? And all, don't ask for what and all, there is no answer. The very nature of life is somehow to survive. That is a pure animalistic instinct. That's how all species live. A buffalo that is born, it also tries to survive as long as it can. So a successful buffalo life means, what is a successful buffalo life? A buffalo who has given birth to children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and did Kanakabhisheka and all that. What is the successful life of? Just survival. It's all. Just survival. Survive as long as you can. And a human being cannot be satisfied with sheer survival. A human being cannot be satisfied with mere survival because there is a destination. What Vedanta does, it tells you the destination. It tells you this is the destination. It is not deciding the destination. It is only making you aware of the destination. It is not telling you go there. It's only saying this is where you are going, be aware of it. In that process, a few things happen. What is a few things that will happen till you reach the destination? Till you reach the destination, what will happen? There will be a birth, there will be a death. There will be a birth, there will be a death. There will be a birth, there will be a death. Till you reach that destination. You can never escape the destination. You can only postpone it. You can only postpone the destination. You can never escape the destination. It means, what is the destination? At first level, sheer survival becomes a destination. Somehow we have to be alive first, sir. That's all. Rest and all we'll see later. First, let us somehow be alive. And then what becomes a destination? In order to be alive, acquisition is needed. So acquiring becomes the destination. After a while, you understand that you have acquired, but never enjoyed anything. So enjoying what you have acquired becomes the destination. And then you understand this also has no meaning, because then you start bringing in some dharma into it, value-based life, and that also doesn't stop the travel. it stops, the traveling stops once you reach the real destination. What is the real destination? The real destination is, you can call it reality, you can call it Brahman, you can call it knowing your true nature. Any word can be used. But till you reach the destination, you will go through this cycle. What is the cycle? The cycle of birth and death. And there is nothing fearsome about death. Why there is nothing fearsome about death? How can you say that, sir? Have you died to say that? There is nothing fearsome to death. Fear comes only when death is seen as an end or losing something. You fear death because you fear you are going to lose. That's why you want to postpone it. Are you able to follow now? The fear of death is because death is understood as you are going to lose. What you are going to lose? First thing, what you are going to lose? The body. And if you have understood that this body has been, if you understand that having entered the body, you have to leave the body, it becomes very clear that leaving the body will not become a problem. So first thing about fear, first thing about death. What is the fear of death? It is not the fear of death, actually speaking. It is the fear of losing. What is the fear of losing? Fear losing the body, fear losing all the acquisitions, fear losing all the possessions. And this fear of losing, a person who fears losing will be afraid in life right through. He need not worry about fear of death alone. A person who's having this fear of losing will live in fear right through. Why? Because at every stage you are losing something. You lose the infancy. You lost the teenage. Now you are at age, some age, and you are going to lose that also. So when you understand that it's a process which happens by itself and you cannot do anything about it, there is no fear. Death stops frightening you. Opposite of that is there is always the fear of death, because death is understood as losing something. That is why they say, I fear end of relationship, I fear losing. That person who fears losing will be miserable about death. A person who is not afraid of losing will not be afraid of death. A person who is not afraid of losing will not be afraid of death. Afraid of losing in the sense not that he is going to lose anything because he never had it in the first place. The fear of loss comes only when you thought you are the owner. When you have assumed that you are the owner, the assumption that you are the owner will automatically bring about the fear of losing. Beautiful phenomena of life is death, because it tells you that you are allowed to use everything. You can never be the owner of anything. So death, instead of using death as a factor for fear, you use death for contemplation. Death is not a subject matter of fear. Death is not the subject matter of writing poetry. Death is the subject matter of contemplation. What is the contemplation? You fear losing because you thought you are the owner and Yama is going to snatch it away from you, isn't it? That's why they say Yama comes and snatches it away. And how Yama comes? Yama means Kala, correct? Kala means black. Kala means black. Kala means time. Both. Kala means black. Kala means time. Kala means unknown. Yama is called Kala. Kala. He is black and he wears black. He himself is black and he wears black dress and he comes on the black Rolls Royce. I don't know what he comes in the black Rolls Royce with a rope in his hand. With a rope in his hand. I don't know, maybe like the old cowboy style movie. You know, he comes with the rope. And then whoever is there, he puts the rope and drags you away. Death is described like that. Instead of allowing Yama to drag you, if you say, Yama, we are friends, I will walk with you, na, you have conquered death. Don't make this worry about you. You don't have to drag me and all. Why do you have to drag me? All along, I was waiting for you to meet you. Come, let us walk, na, fear. That is called losing. It's not suicidal. Please understand, it's not committing suicide. It is understanding that the fear arises because of the belief that you are going to lose something. When you understand that in death, you are not losing anything. If you understand in death, you are not losing anything, fear of death goes away. But sir, we are losing the body. No. Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grannati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samvati navani dehi. Verse number 13, chapter 2. Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grannati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. It's a worn out garment. When you get a garment, what do? A new garment, you are very happy, isn't it? When you get a new garment, you are happy. That is the birth. And then you start using it. And then you dry clean it. Yeah. You keep it, you dry clean it, etc. And wear and tear starts happening. And wear and tear starts happening, immediately you will not discard, isn't it? Immediately you will not discard. What you will do, you'll try to stitch it, keep it going. As long as you can keep it, you will keep it. A time comes where you know you cannot use it anymore. What happens? That garment is discarded. So birth of the body is like acquiring the new garment. Death of the body is discarding the worn out garment. And there also you are free. Eh? You don't have to worry about waste disposal. Somebody is doing that. No. Children, yeah. It's a waste, correct? And who will do the waste disposal? Shankar. Who will do the waste disposal? Corporation also will do. For that, you don't need to dispose the waste, you don't need, because if there is nobody, corporation will take care. So much of fear, so much of agony, so much of effort to avoid death. In Vedanta, we understand death rightly. We are bold enough to analyze death properly. It's not that we write poetry. It's not that we write poetry about death. It's not that we write essays about death and fear dying. Isn't it? And most of the time it happens. People write wonderful poetry about love, but they will not know what love. They will not know what love is, isn't it? At least at one point of time, I genuinely thought some of these guys really know what love is, because the way that they write about love, the lyrics, the words, this, I thought, oh my God. And then 2-3 persons I went and met, and I know also. No way connected to. So it is like writing poetry on love and not knowing what love. We don't write about death. We don't talk about death like that. Nor do you have to experience death. Vedanta comes and says, you are experiencing death all the time. You are just not aware of it. You are not bold enough to know it. You are experiencing death all the time. You are not bold enough to accept it. If you are bold enough to accept your death, that you are dying, that physical death will be of no consequence. Are you able to follow? No. It's not that you are going to die only on a particular time. That is why we call death as change. That is why death in the modern day terminology is called as change. And you are not going to change that last moment. The moment you realize that you are dying now, that death will be of no consequence. The traveler understands what? Now, don't forget the traveler in all this thing. Now the traveler understands what? In those days, travelers what is it? No, in those days they have no travelers. There are places for the travelers. It's called then a satraman kepanga, isn't it? What is the English word for that? Yeah, chatram is the chatram jumma transliteration. That's the What is that English word for that? Pre-boarding and lodging. You can chowltry. Yeah, I don't know. Chowltry is that an English word? Is it? I thought it's a Hindi word. Okay. So chowltry. What does chowltry means? You come, you stay, you eat, and you need not pay. You can just leave. Isn't it? Restaurant means you come, you eat. When you are leaving, you have to pay. Traveler understands the body is a place like that, a resting place. Got to use it for a while. Why you got to use it for a while? Why you need the body? Because experiences cannot happen without a body. Experience to happen, you need a body. For without a body, there cannot be an experience. Ghost also must have a body, no, isn't it? It also should have hands, it also should have legs, but it can float with the legs, isn't it? At least we will walk with legs, the ghost will float with legs, but that also needs a body. Vedanta says this human being is such an interesting combination. This human being is such a beautiful combination, interesting combination. Just the human being is enough for contemplation. Vedanta, you don't need such an elaborate lectures and all that. Just a human being itself is enough for contemplation. What is it that is so wonderful in a human being? One thing that is constantly dying and another thing that is not at all dying. What is a human being? Who's a human being? One thing that is constantly dying, and there is another thing that doesn't die at all. That which is constantly dying, that which is constantly changing is called matter. That which doesn't die at all is called spirit. Oh, this human being is such a wonderful combination, such a unique, interesting combination. Where Ramana said, why go and ask all this? Who am I? Why go and read books and books and books after books after book, class after class after class, lectures after lectures after lectures, course after course after course? All this you don't need to do. Just to focus on the I, that is enough. Why? Because if you focus on the I, you realize this I is made of two things. What are the two things that I is made up of? One that is constantly changing and another that doesn't change at all. And that which is constantly dying, that which is constantly changing, appears to be alive. Second point. And so are you able to follow the second point? It appears to be alive. That which is constantly changing appears to be alive. And that appearance is because of the proximity. That appearance is because of proximity. Technically, it is called reflection. Technically, it's called a reflected phenomena. Technically, it's called a reflected phenomena. But it appears to be alive because of the proximity. And what is a reflective phenomena? We have seen that in Atma Bodha. A crystal takes the color. The crystal is colorless, but the crystal takes the color that which it is closest, proximity. So that which is a reflected phenomena, the body, the reflected phenomena body appears to be alive because of what? Because of the proximity to the undying. Because of the proximity to the reality, invariably what you do? You somehow believe or expect that which is constantly dying somehow should be stopped from dying. So, somehow you believe that which is constantly dying must be stopped from dying. Vedanta says that is a futile effort. Because one part in you is constantly dying, another part in you will never die. It is like seeing your reflection and taking the reflection to be you. You see a reflection, that's why it's called reflected consciousness, it's called conditioned consciousness, and we keep on using the word reflection, reflection, reflection. When you take the reflection to be real, you are missing the reality. When you take the reflection to be real. And what is the nature of reflection? The nature of reflection is, as long as the mirror is there, the reflection is there. You take away the mirror, the reflection goes out. Reflection going away is not the original gone, no. The reflection has gone, But that doesn't mean the original has gone. That is what we understand upon death. Upon death, what we understand, the reflection is changing from one to the other, but nothing else has happened. Therefore, which is what we read last week, there is nothing abominable about death. There is nothing to fear death. There is nothing to worry about death. There is nothing to mourn over death. And to understand what death is understanding what life itself is. Understanding death is understanding life, because death is not the opposite of life. Death is not the end of life. Death is what life is. And what does death means? Death means change. If death means change, understanding change is understanding life. Why? Because life equals death and life equals change. Understanding this, a person doesn't fear leaving the body, because he understands where is he going to go. Worn out garments, you discard one garment and you are going to take up another garment. So birth is acquiring the garment, and when you acquire a garment, nowadays buying garments and all doesn't thrill anybody, because so much is there already, no? So it doesn't make any difference. I still remember people talking. I don't remember it, but at least people keep talking. Because you buy garments only on, you buy garments on, when will you buy garments, Srikanth? Or Diwali, clear? Or Diwali or Pongal, that's all. Isn't it? That's all you will buy. Maybe twice a year, maximum thrice in a year you will buy. Every day if you are buying now, what difference does it make? So the acquiring the garment, stitching it, preserving it, keeping it neat, washing it, laundering it all the time. Laundering it, you keep it. And then after a while, what happens? It starts. After a while, what happens? You are doing all this. After a while, what happens? It starts worn out. So what is getting worn out? The body gets worn out. And you cannot prevent that. That's why it's called the nature. Nature of the body is to get worn out. And you know what is the definition of nature means? Definition of nature means you cannot change it. That's why it's called nature. Nature of garlic is what? Ramakrishna Paramahansa says, you cut garlic, 1 week later also your hand will have that, no? Even after 1 week also. Nature of garlic is the odor of garlic. Now you cannot, how much ever you soak it in, I don't know, what is the best perfume? How much ever you soak it in that best perfume also, and then take it out and crush it, what will happen? Good perfume will come out of garlic, Venkatachalam. Will it come? It will not come. Why? Because it cannot be changed. It's the nature. So that which cannot be changed has to be understood. That's all. That which cannot be changed, Vedanta says, that which cannot be changed, simply understand. And that understanding gives you that freedom. What is it that cannot be changed? Again, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Kaumaram, Yavanam, Jara. Tata dehantara praptihi dhiras tatra namuyati. Another verse. Same. Kaumaram, Yavvanam, Jara. Kaumaram means infant. Yavvanam is youth. Jara means old age. Generally, it is 5. Krishna makes it simple into 3. What is the 5? Birth, growth, disease, decay, and death is the 5. Krishna, instead of saying the 5, he makes it into 3. So, what is the nature of the body? The nature of the body is birth, growth, disease, decay, death. Oh, I got diseased, I got disease, I got disease, the fear of disease, the fear of disease. We are not saying get diseased and don't make and don't do anything. That's not what is said. It said you can postpone it. You can try and postpone it. But one thing for sure, what will happen? Disease, decay, death. Therefore, understanding the nature means understanding the inevitable. So nature means the inevitable. What is the inevitable nature of fire? What is the inevitable thing in ice? What is the inevitable in garlic? Similarly, what is inevitable in life? Birth, growth, disease, decay, death. So between birth and death, you grow. That growth, destination for the growth of the body is, what is the destination of the growth of the body? To be permanently growing. Huh? Have you observed? At one stage in life, you eat to grow. Another stage in life, how much ever you eat, deterioration keeps happening. Correct? Enough, sir. Birth and death, we have understood. Go to the next topic. Yeah, why are you not? What he has written itself is more pleasant than what you are. Okay. But then, we are all supposed to be philosophers, no? So we should have the courage to boldly face it. At one stage in life, you eat to grow. Another stage in life, you eat to survive. Another stage in life, how much ever you eat, you cannot avoid. Therefore, birth, growth, disease, decay, death, Vedanta says, instead of writing poetry about it, instead of writing a will after death, instead of worrying about what will happen to others after death, what will happen to your property after death, worry about what is happening. What you should worry about? Vasanti. Don't worry about writing the will. Yeah. What will happen to my property after I die? They are also going to die. What will happen? Isn't it? Whoever you write it to, they are also going to die. So, what you should worry about? Worry about the deathless. Worry about there is that aspect in you that is not dying at all. Learn to identify with that. So we talk about birth and death for what? We talk about birth and death to understand the deathless. We don't talk about birth and death in a pessimistic way. Are you able to understand now? We don't talk about birth and death we don't talk about death in a pessimistic way. We don't talk about death as a pathological disease. It's a psychological disease to be worrying about dying, death, and all that. We are not talking from that angle. We talk about death so that we understand we talk about death so we understand the deathless. You talk about death so you understand the deathless. And if you take the life of the body to be life, if you take the life of the body to be real, you will never know the reality. Why you will never know the reality? Because life has these two aspects. One that is constantly changing, another doesn't change at all. How can these two combine finally? How can the changeless and the ever-changing combine? These are all, Vijay, Purida, these are all things for contemplation. How can the changeless, how can the changeless and ever-changing, that which remains the same in the past, that which remains the same in the present, and that which will remain the same in the future, that which wasn't the same in the past, that which exists only now, and that which is not going to exist in the future, how can these two entities combine? And life is an appearance of this combination. Life is an appearance of these two things. When you understand it like this, you don't fear death. If not, what will happen? If not, what will happen? Fear comes. And when fear becomes, see, everybody has a threshold. After the threshold, what happens? If we can't manage, everybody has a threshold. Once the threshold is crossed, what will happen? You become unconscious. They get so frightened and they become unconscious, and death happens unconsciously. Vedanta says, why fear so much about it? And the Dharma Shastras talk about how to die. They tell you how to die also. And nobody is dying like that. Huh? The Dharma Sutras, the Dharma Shastras talks about how to die. And you know how they describe it? Oh my God. What? That is the way to die. And people die. People used to die like that. First thing, the dying person should have a bath. Who? Not others. The dying person. He will go, he should have a bath. And then do the Pundarika according to your tradition. Pundarika means the mark according to your tradition. Clear? Either you put the full stripes, or you put the chandan, or you put the Y, I don't know, whatever it is. You put that according to your things. You put the Pundarika and sit in the direction facing north, because Yama is there, no? So you are welcoming him. I'm not going to the details. When I read that, I thought, my God, is there anybody who can actually die like that? And then there are people who die like that because they are so fearless. Why they are so fearless? Because they have understood what it is. It is discarding that which is worn out. Why we do all the rituals now is because since the dying person is not doing anything to oneself, we do all that. What all rituals we do to the body? We bathe the body, isn't it? We bathe, we decorate it, isn't it? We decorate according to the tradition. We decorate it. Clear. Here we decorate according to our tradition. In the West, they will put a suit and tie. I don't know what all they will put. So according to the tradition, it is all decorated. We have to do all this. Why? Because that fellow didn't do all that to himself. If that person has done all that to oneself, all that we have to do is what? Just dispose. That's all. All that we have to do is what? Quietly take, dispose. That's why we don't make it a big, you know, even today they will not really make a big issue about crying, make a huge drama and all. They will not do. That is the way to die, or a person who has knowledge would die in that manner. Why? Because he has understood that it is happening all the time. No, it's happening. It's happening all the time. It is happening. Therefore, birth and death is not something to be frightened about. It is to be contemplated about. And this contemplation makes you realize certain facts of life. The contemplation makes you to realize certain truths of life, certain facts of life. What does it realize? What does it make you to? What does it make you to recognize? It makes you recognize the two. What is the two? The nature of the dying cannot be stopped, and the deathless ever remains. The nature of the dying cannot be stopped. You can try and postpone it. You can try and elongate it as much as you want. In fact, in Kathopanishad, that's what Yama tells Nachiketas. I will give you 100 years. He said. And then he corrected. I will give you 100 teenage life, he said. Not a old age. Yeah. Supposing he gives I'll give 100 years, and then at 60, 40, one, each and every organ starts deteriorating. By the time you reach 80, all organs are deteriorated and you are still alive. What is the point of that living? He says, I will give you 100 years of teenage life. Nachiketa said, you are only elongating it. No, that's the reply. Yama, you are only elongating it. No, you are only postponing it. No. And a wise one will not want to postpone. Wise one wants to face it. And what is the right way to face it? What is the proper way of facing anything? The right way of facing anything, the proper way of facing anything is developing the right understanding. To face something means to have the right understanding of what it is. To understand something means to understand it rightly. Therefore, here we talk about birth and death in the context of wanting to understand it rightly. There is that book, Samkshepa Dharmashastra. Udane Google pannadappa Vijay. Immediately don't start Googling down. You download a copy. And so many things, I say thank God, because it is not available in English. Nothing will happen. Yeah, even if it is there in English, what will you do? What will anybody do? Isn't it? They talk about, it means the dying person knows that he is going to die, no? How he will take a bath, how he will do all the Pundrika, how he will sit facing north, and how he will sit and chant the Gayatri. How he will sit and chant the Gayatri. It means that fellow is going to die. Means courage to enter death consciously. The courage to enter death consciously. What is entering death consciously is not lying down and imagining that I am going to die. Or don't get into that insane thing, sir. That is not getting into death consciously. Getting into death consciously means what? Otherwise, people think, okay, I will die in the, sorry, not die, I will lie in the Shavasana posture, and then slowly imagine my life is leaving the body. That's hallucination, insanity that is. That is not conscious dying. What is conscious dying? This is conscious dying. What? The dying person knows. Just as you know that you are going to have breakfast at whatever time, lunch at whatever time, dinner at whatever time, that fellow also knows that he is going to die at so and so time. So when the time comes, what he does all this preparation. It means what? You cannot do it at the time of death. You have to do it. You have to do it now. What is preparation for death means? Preparation for death means preparation for change. Preparation for death means preparation for change. Preparation for death means acceptance, change. And lot of courage is required to accept it. That's why he's called Dhiras Tatra Na Muhyati, he says. In the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, he called this person a Dhiraha. Dhiraha means a bravery born out of right discrimination. That is Dhiraha. Dhiraha literally will be translated as a brave person. But what is there, what is implied is bravery born out of right knowledge and understanding. Bravery that is born out of right knowledge and understanding. What is that bravery that is born out of right knowledge and understanding? No grief. Dhiras tatra na muhyati. He doesn't grieve. That person doesn't grieve. What that person doesn't grieve? Jivan Mukti. Now it is Videha Mukti. That's all. That person doesn't bother about dying at all. Why? Because he's already liberated. Jivan Muktaha is a liberated person. Now death is what? Videha Mukti. So from Jivan Mukti, he is moving on to Videha Mukti. There is no fear. In the layperson's case, in anybody else's case, there is the fear of dying. Why the fear of dying? Now start from the beginning. Why the fear of death? Fear of death is nothing but the fear of losing. Isn't it? If you have understood, the person loving you today need not love you tomorrow. You are strong. Then the problem comes where the person loving you must love you. The person loving you today must love you tomorrow and forever. You yourself don't love you forever. How can somebody love you forever? So this is courage. Birth and death in Vedanta, we study birth and death as a subject matter of contemplation. Because accepting death is the freedom from pain and sorrow. Accepting death means accepting death now means very clear. Accepting death means accepting change. And then the focus is on the changeless. And then the focus shift on to the changeless. From this, what do we understand? The greatest lie of life is death. In fact, death means there is no bigger lie than death. Because something in you that is constantly changing and there is something in you that never dies. So what is death here? The way in which people talk about death as the end of something is a lie. The people believe that something comes to an end at death is a lie. Birth inevitably results in death, and death inevitably results in a birth. As long as the fuel is there. As long as the fuel is there. So when you are living, you can add the fuel or exhaust the fuel. So a person who is exhausting the fuel is not worried about death, will not be worried about death. A person who's going on adding by default will be worried, because he fears that all his acquisition is going to lose. That is why he writes a will and he believes that that will is a continuity of him, isn't it? He writes a will and he believes that that will is going to be a continuity. In Vedanta, we say become aware of death. Do not be afraid of it, face it. Face it means think about it. Whenever we say face it means think about it and understand it rightly. You may be rich, you may be poor. You may be educated, you may be uneducated. You may be literate, you may be illiterate. Death equalizes. Only area where communism works is on death. Death, communism works only on death. In life, it doesn't work, but in death, it actually works, because it equalizes everything. You will never know the bone of a saint and the bone of the sinner. Both appears to be bones only. One has to understand death properly in order to understand what life is. First, we said life is the supreme law. Now, we'll see the connection in the topic. First, we saw birth and we saw so much about it. I'm connecting it to the text now. First, we saw supreme law. Life is a set of laws, principles. And all these principles evolve from one primary law, just as the primary root and the secondary roots. There is something at the core, a law, and out of this law evolves everything else. That law which is at the core is called the supreme law. What is that? What is the core law? Based on what we have discussed, what is the core law out of which all other laws evolve? What is that core law? That core law of life is change. The supreme law of life, the core law of life is change. And change happens by a method of cause and effect. Change happens through, it doesn't happen arbitrarily. There is a proper sequence to it. So sequence is not the supreme law. What is the supreme law? Everything happens in a sequence is not a supreme law. What is the supreme law? Change is the supreme law. And the change happens sequentially. And that sequentially, one we call it as law of destiny, another we call it as law of karma, then we call it as prarabdha, and then we call it as purushartha. Now we are seeing it in the way that it ought to be understood on a practical plane. Supreme law, prarabdha, purushartha, all that is the technical explanation. Birth and death is a practical explanation of the same law. Otherwise, law of karma should have stopped with the previous only. The where we discussed and all that about this purushartha and all that, law of karma should have stopped. Why continue into birth and death? Birth and death is the practical way of looking at the supreme law. If you don't understand the law through intellect, you can understand the law through observation. What is the observation? You see birth and death happening constantly, and yet practically nobody believes in, death. Even though seeing birth and death happening constantly, why practically nobody believes in death? Because there is a part in you that is not dying at all. No. There is a part in you that is not dying at all. No. Because of ignorance, the reflection is understood that way. That is because of ignorance. Therefore, birth and death, we understand it as the supreme law. And what is the supreme law? There is only one supreme law. Out of that supreme law comes all other law. What is that supreme law of life? Change. Accepting this law makes you objective. Accepting this law is the way to be objective in life. Accepting this law is to become a sakshi in life. And you know what sakshi means, no? Sakshi means, what is sakshi? Objectivity. Isn't it? What is objectivity? Witnessing. What is witnessing? Sakshi is, I don't know whether it is possible or not in the language sense, but that's how it works. Sakshi is a verb without an action. That is sakshi. Can I explain that? Sakshi means a verb without an action. For witnessing is not an action. The moment you understand it, the moment you understand the supreme law, you become a sakshi. What is the sakshi? You identify with the, what do you identify with? You identify with that. We started by saying, no, human being is a combination of spirit and matter. In a different way, don't use the word spirit and matter, use it differently. Human being is a combination of that which is constantly dying, that which doesn't die at all. Human being is the combination. One part of the human being doesn't die at all. Another part of the human being is constantly changing. And this change happens in a time frame. Since this happens in a time frame, that time frame is what is called as birth and death. I will follow. So what is birth and death? A change happening in a time frame. So there is a birth and then there is a death. There is a birth and there is a death. So for a person who has accepted the law, what is the law? Change. There is no shocks in life. There is no surprises in life. There are no uncertainties in life after that. Are you able to follow now? For a person who's objective, there is no shock, there is no surprises, there are no uncertainties. All this the person faces only when a person has not woken up to the supreme law. And that supreme law functions in a time frame, and that time frame is called birth and death. This is the topic, birth. This is the topic, birth and death. So, to conclude, There is nothing abominable about the body dying because it has to die anyway. And it is foolish to worry about the inevitable. It is foolish to worry about the inevitable. Even though death is happening all the time, why is it that all human beings want immortality? Why is it that all species wants immortality? Why is that everything in life wants immortality? Because life itself is a combination of the two. What is the two? That which never dies and that which is constantly dying. Therefore, it is understandable that a human being will aspire for immortality. Now connected to the traveler. I started the story by the traveler. No, so we will finish with the traveler. Wow, otherwise he will be left hanging somewhere. So we will take the traveler to the destination. So the traveler understands what? Unnecessarily he is traveling because he is focusing on the change. The moment he shifts the attention to the changeless, from the dying to that which doesn't die. The moment the attention is shifted from that which is constantly changing to that which doesn't change at all. But how do you say that there is something that is changeless, sir? How do you say that there is something deathless? What is the answer for that? Example of light and object. Example of light and object. There is light, a hand comes. The arrival of the hand is not the arrival of light. The disappearance of the hand is not the disappearance of light. Recognition of light for the jiva happens through the hand only. Similarly, how do you understand the deathless? The deathless is understood by the pronoun, first person pronoun, first person singular pronoun. What is that first person singular pronoun? I. You know, the infant is not the boy is not the man is not the old man. But something in you says, you are the same. Something in you says you are the same. So there is lot of evidences we have studied already. I'm not going into the details. Now, we have studied that. Based on those evidences, we know that there is that thing called deathless, changeless in a human being. So there is a deathless, and then there is something that is constantly dying. Birth and death we discuss only to understand the true nature of the change and then shift to the changeless. Therefore, the study of death becomes a material for contemplation leading us to liberation, not one of depression. Otherwise, death, we feel like dying now, isn't it? It's not about it's not about getting into depression. It's not getting about into a suicidal tendency. This is as far as birth and death is concerned. Natural extension of the birth and death is the theory of reincarnation. It becomes a natural corollary to it. And then the chapter law of karma concludes with the theory of reincarnation. which we will take it up next week. But as far as today is concerned, we studied about the birth and the death. There is nothing abominable about it, and you can never accept death. Why you can never accept death? Because there is something in you that is not dying at all. No. How can you accept it? There is something in you that is not dying at all. There is something in you that is ever permanent. Therefore, how can you accept it? From reflection, the attention has to be shifted to the real. From reflection, you shift the attention to the real. With this, we conclude birth and death. Is it okay? I assume there are no clarifications, no?
No questions, sir. No clarifications.
We will continue with Anshu, theory of reincarnation next week. We will continue with that.